This is where we all sit and look at each other when we go live.
Did you give me a 5?
Yes, I did.
Oh, well, didn't see it. Sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for joining the Voice of Reason podcast. My name is Sean Phillips, and today, as usual, I am joined alongside my two co-hosts, Mr. Andy Van Beber and Travis Kirkendall. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing today?
First, I must say, do not edit that out. That was amazing. I was waiting for him to say something too, but
I was like,
I had my mic muted, so I was like, I'm just gonna wait.
The issue is on my Zoom, it just had Travis's picture, and so like I must have missed it because I was like swiping over to gallery view so I could see the three of you, and then I was like waiting for the countdown.
Oh my gosh,
that was we're off to a great start.
It is. This is going to be fantastic tonight. I can't wait.
Yeah, well, ladies and gentlemen, as many of you guys know, there's always good stuff that is happening in our world. My week especially was insanely busy, but I had a good drill weekend with a lot of my soldiers. We're joining our live group and our podcast listeners a little bit sooner rather than later, and that just is because last week's podcast came a little bit late. It was a pretty hectic week for all of us, but today we were able to get it in and on time, and unfortunately I blew it with that intro. So
and I just want to say that's what she said.
Hey-oh. Hey-oh. I see you didn't miss me. Gentlemen, was there anything new that took place in your guys' life in the last couple of days since we've last spoke?
We are one step closer. All things are ready for the home paperwork and everything. We're getting so much closer to being ready to be official homeowners of a Missouri home. So fingers crossed that we will get that bad boy up and rocking here before long. So
congratulations. That's exciting. That's exciting. Travis, how about you in the Chicago neck of the woods? Has there been anything good that's happened out there for you?
Well, first, I must say for Andy, moving over to Missouri, the grass truly is greener on the other side. As someone who's lived both, I mean, congratulations.
Yes, thank you. Yes,
have fun saving money, paying a bunch of taxes.
Yes, I'm gonna believe me, I'm going to enjoy that very much so.
But no, weekend was good. Funny story. We've been going to the beaches here in downtown Chicago. They're on Lake Michigan. And what was it? Sunday, we accidentally stumbled upon a gay beach. And
what?
Yeah, that was interesting.
Okay.
There were so many people. It was crazy, but it was just
that's my kind of party. I'm going to need the details of the beach.
Yeah, it was interesting. So, all I want to say.
What's funny about that is, so for the listeners that don't know, for a while in my time in St. Louis, I was a manager at a gay nightclub just down in St. Louis. Was one of the best experiences that I've ever had. I love my regulars. Loved everyone there. It was one of the best working experiences I ever had. What's so funny is I had went to Chicago, and I would remember talking to a bunch of my regulars about something that's called IML. IML is International Men's Leather. It's an entire convention that's held at the Congress Hotel, which is in St. Louis, just off Michigan Avenue. And what was so funny was this just go. I don't have many blonde moments in my life. Usually I typically can avoid them, but I will never forget. My girlfriend and I had went to Chicago. It was Memorial Day weekend is when IML is held. And I was walking down Michigan Avenue, and these two gentlemen walked by in complete cop outfits, complete cop get-ups with the hat, badge, everything. But they were completely, they were all in leather. They were all leather. The vest, the hats, the gloves, the pants, everything was leather. And I looked at my girlfriend, and I was like, what kind of cops? Why do the cops in this town wear leather outfits? That didn't make any sense to me. And then it like hit me as we rounded the corner, and then the rest of IML was there. I was like, those weren't actual cops, dumbass. Those were people that were participating in IML. And what was funny was, we went to the Congress specifically because we were doing like a haunted ghost tour of Chicago, because Chicago, and it was called a ghost tour. Really, we just got taken to all these places that a bunch of Italian mobsters have been killed back in the day.
Wow. Okay.
It's still a really cool experience. Going to the actual alleyway where John Dillinger was shot was like really, really actually just kind of cool, because I love the John Dillinger story.
I didn't know he was killed in Chicago. That's cool.
He was, yep. And what was so funny was we had needed to find out where our bus was. We got a visitor. Hi, Tony. We needed to find out.
Hey, Tony.
Hey, Tony.
We needed to find out where the bus was that was going to be taking us on this ghost tour. What? No. And well, I needed to know where the bus was, so I went to this lady that was standing out in front of the hotel, and I was like, ma'am, do you know where this bus is going to be for our ghost tour? And she's like, the only people that might know are going to be inside, but sweetheart, I don't know if you want to go in there right now. And I was like, ma'am, this is a Tuesday at work for me. Just show me wherever I need to go. And it was funny because I ran into a couple of my regulars while I was there. And so IML is actually on my bucket list. I want to go so bad because it looked like a blast. And I just got to find some friends to suit up and go with me. So if you gentlemen don't have anything going on next year during Memorial Day weekend and want to go to International Men's Leather 2022, you just let me know.
I will tell you this as not happening to me, but my nephew who is gay, he actually, and this is his claim to fame. They have a men's leather group that's up there in Wisconsin where he used to live, and 2 years running he was Mr. Leather Wisconsin for 2 years in a row.
Hey, if there's a state to be the men's leather champion in the world, it's Wisconsin. Go Pack, go! Green Bay fan,
he's
Leather Daddy.
Yeah, and
that guy is a champion.
And I want to tell
my
you,
champion.
And you'd like him, Sean, for the fact that he's built like a brick house. He's very fitness oriented and everything, and he works hard for his leather look, but I love my nephew. He's a great guy, and so it's really good. Even though I may not agree with the lifestyle, I still support him, and I think it's pretty cool.
I need to meet your nephew. This guy sounds like the coolest dude I've never met yet. He sounds like who I want to be on the inside, as a leather daddy champion who gets to eat cheese curds and cheer for the pack all the way up there in Kenosha or Wisconsin, Green Bay.
I just gotta say, as someone who's lived in Pike County, Missouri, to here in Chicago, Illinois. And seeing, the stuff I see here, like, for example, the beach we stumbled upon. Have you gentlemen seen the movie Bruno?
It's my favorite movie of all time.
That's
I know
that's Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah, Sacha Baron Cohen, right?
Okay, so there is a specific scene where like they're doing a wrestling match, and a bunch of these like hillbillies and stuff are like watching this wrestling match, and then all of a sudden, at the very end of the fight, they start making out with each other. And it shows this one guy, this one grown man, he's literally crying. Like he is like this devastated by what he's seeing. So I just picture like people from where we're from, if they saw some of this stuff, I see here, they would, I don't know. I just thought that was funny.
I know exactly what scene you're talking about. A bit of a backstory about this to our listeners. So Sacha Baron Cohen, for those of you guys that don't know who Sacha Baron Cohen is or what Bruno is Borat, the actor that played Borat. Essentially, back in the early 2000s, he had a show called the Ali G's, I think the Ali G show, where he had a bunch of different characters. And Bruno specifically was one of his characters, who was a gay fashion icon from Austria. It was a character that he had created. And when the Bruno movie came out, what's so funny is at the very end of the movie, okay, he had, because of who he was, he had another character that he called Straight Dave that was like this redneck character. And it was Georgia. He hosted an amateur MMA event that had thousands of people in attendance. And it was called like Straight Dave's Slammiversary, something along those lines. And at the beginning of the show, he went out as Straight Dave and got this crowd riled up about their heterosexual pride. And like, this was a like deep South Georgia crowd, and they were all into it. And it was a night full of fighting and actual amateur MMA bouts. And then for the main event, he went back out there as Straight Dave, got the crowd riled up again. And then one of the characters in the show was his assistant, who was also his lover. They had planted him into the crowd, and he came down into the cage where they like started to fight. But then, as Travis said, they started to like kiss and make out, roll around, take each other's shirts off. But here's the kicker. Sacha Baron Cohen was arrested for inciting a riot because this crowd literally were throwing chairs, trying to break into this cage to attack him. And he had to be police escort out, and it caused a riot at this event. It caused damages to the property, and he was arrested for inciting a riot. It is no longer allowed in the state of Georgia because of it.
Wow.
Yeah, one of the greatest performance arts I've ever seen. But Sacha Baron Cohen could do no wrong. He when it comes to like just getting people tricked for those, like, I know some people said they didn't like Borat 2, but I did think it was one of the funniest things I'd ever seen, where he went to a Trump rally and essentially got all these super conservatives to talk about chopping up Fauci like the Saudis do. He said, kill them all like Hillary do. I mean, he got these people chanting some insane stuff.
It shows you the ignorance of crowd mentality right there.
Yeah. Oh, big time.
100%.
Yeah. And so, yeah, just that reminded me, Travis, like that. Yeah, literally incited a riot in a state because of that. But yeah, that probably happened about where we're from. If fellas started making out. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
Speaking of MMA events, I was texting you guys the other night about I guess it was last weekend. The Jake Paul and
Logan Paul and Floyd Mayweather.
So I have on my I wouldn't have paid for this, but I watched this event. I get it on my Fire Stick, and I got it for free, and I watch it. I would, if I was somebody who paid for that event, I would have been highly pissed off, because that was the biggest slop fest that I ever see. I mean, Mayweather, I think, could have destroyed this guy in probably maybe a round, and even though Logan Paul outweighed him by, what was it, like 57?
30 pounds.
Was it
30 pounds?
Was it only 30?
Yeah, 30 pounds.
Still, and I mean, Mayweather was just, he would just, he would get
duck,
one,
dodge, dive, dip, dodge.
Yeah, and I was just like, dude, just finish him off. And
yeah, it was
worst. I mean, because I watched Mayweather box in his prime, and I've seen him just light people up, and I mean, it was embarrassing. I thought, anymore, I think, and maybe it's just me, I don't follow boxing like I used to. I mean, back in the days when Tyson and, Buster Douglas and Evander Holyfield and Lennox Lewis and all you don't see. I follow MMA a little bit just because of what you tell me about it, Sean. But it's like anymore. And I love to watch, if I can see a good fight. I would love to watch a good fight, but it's anymore. Just the big time players just aren't there anymore for me.
Well, it comes down to two big issues, and I'm a big boxing fan. I love the pure sport of boxing.
Same.
The issue that boxing has, and Travis can even attest to this, boxing created the shell, and this is like new within the 2000s, right? And even towards like the tail end, like as we get in like 05 and after, boxing turned into the spectacle because of, not just because of Floyd, but the idea of boxing is not worth selling unless there's an undefeated fighter. And I don't know why it is that way. And I don't know if it's because Floyd put it on that way. And one of the only real exceptions was Canelo Alvarez. And his only loss comes to Floyd Mayweather.
I was going to say Floyd was the only one that beat him. So
and there's the issue, like Top Rank is a great promotion that puts on a very professional, puts on extremely professional events. But unfortunately, a lot of them just don't get a lot of the headlines like they should. Aside from Canelo, outside of the boxing realm, there are boxers like Vasyl Lomachenko who are insanely talented. But Homeboy lost recently, and now it's like you don't hear about him.
So do you think
even in the boxing realm anymore?
So you think it's more the promoters than it is anything else? Though just the promotion side of it?
Yes, but here's the thing. Jake Paul Brent Askren that lasted all of 45 seconds.
45 seconds. It wasn't
cracked the top 10 of boxing pay-per-view buys of all time.
Really?
And that's not a joke. And even to put it in perspective, Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor being a global iconic superstar but not a boxer was the second most purchased boxing pay-per-view of all time.
And I tell you what, I watched that one, and I cut all the hype around it, but I thought that was worth the. I mean, Conor McGregor, he's going to give everything that he has in a fight, and I mean, you could tell he was severe. I mean, Floyd Mayweather. I mean, that was a real fight. That was.
Well, here's the thing.
Floyd Mayweather wanted to clock him good, and I mean, Floyd Mayweather made an example out of Conor McGregor in that fight and humbled him.
Yeah, there's levels to it. Like boxing, it's its own thing. If it was the real world, again, I hate using it like this, but if it was like boxing is a sport, right? It is a combat sport. But at the end of the day, if Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather were to fight under mixed martial arts rules, it's just you flip the sides of who's going to be winning that fight,
Right.
Yeah, it's a different sport.
But it's the same thing. It's like comparing LeBron James to Mike Trout. They're the two best in their sport right now. But like you put, LeBron James on a baseball pitch and then you put Mike Trout on the basketball court. It just doesn't make sense, right? It's apples to oranges.
Right.
Well,
that fight last Saturday night was like watching 1970s wrestling to me. I mean, it was just that. I mean, you guys today in the wrestling, I think you guys have a craft. I mean, it is a craft. Yep. Back in the 70s, it was more the stage work, and it was just, you could tell it was just more, it wasn't as, I don't think wrestling back in the day was as physical as what it is today. And to me, that match reminded me of Mayweather. I think Mayweather wanted it to stretch it out to make it last because he's like, man, I could knock this clown out so quick it's not even funny.
And that's the funny thing is, like, and Travis can attest to this, he watches a ton of boxing. Floyd is not necessarily known for his knockout abilities. However, he didn't even show his basic striking abilities.
Exactly.
Like, literally watching that fight, there were multiple times where Logan, and kudos to him for even surviving the 8 rounds, regardless of how well Mayweather decided to box. But literally had his hands down at his waist and was leaning in, kind of like it was one of those where he could be feinting, but normally in most scenarios in boxing, at least you have some kind of a guard. Logan literally had like a taekwondo stance, hands down by his waist, leaning in, and Floyd didn't throw a jab. And normally, if this was a real professional boxing match, yes, Floyd is point scoring left and right on this guy.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, but like I said, but now we shuffle it though. But here's the thing: there's still money to be made in boxing, and that's because fighters are allowed sponsors, and not as much money goes to promotions as it does to the fighters. And that's where the issue lies with mixed martial arts. The largest organization for mixed martial arts, or at least the most famous, is clearly the UFC. The UFC is the largest mixed martial arts organization worldwide. One could argue one championship, but that's just mostly really big in China. China happens to have like 1/4 the world's population, so hence why it's pretty popular over there.
Right.
Where the issue lies is when the UFC took away fighters' abilities to make money off sponsors, and it's one of those good/bad reasons. The reason why originally the UFC made a deal with Reebok. Reebok was the original uniform sponsor. Why they did that was the UFC was trying to move into a more mainstream platform, right? Beforehand, UFC was kind of known as this. You knew a guy was a UFC fan if he was wearing a American Fighter shirt or had, something like that.
Tap out, right.
Exactly. Tap out, right? They wanted to get out of that stigma because they were moving to a Fox and ESPN deal. That was essentially the goal, was to get that big money television deal with a company like Fox. But here's the thing. Fighters could be sponsored by whoever they wanted to be. And again, based off perception, some fighters had Trojan condom written across their butt, for that was their sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
They had all kinds of Adam and Eve, Ashley Madison, which is literally a website meant to have affairs on your significant other, was literally sponsoring these fighters. And that just isn't necessarily going to fit in your mainstream households at 7, 8 p.m. on a Friday night. So they cleaned it up and made a deal with Reebok, and Reebok paid tons of money to have direct rights where their fighters would have to wear their brand whenever they would go and compete. The issue was that money wasn't going to the fighters. It was going to the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
So the UFC could pay the fighters whatever they wanted. Any kind of outside sponsorship money wasn't allowed to be seen while they were competing, with the exception of companies like Monster Energy Drink. There were very few companies that could be seen on a fighter's gear, and Monster wasn't sponsoring normal guys. They were sponsoring the top 10 fighters in the world. That's who is getting that money. Now they just signed an exclusive deal with Venom. I hope that it gets better for the fighters. I don't know if that's going to happen or not.
So basically, it's just those top 10 are the only ones who are really making any serious bank in the UFC, is basically what you're saying.
It can be that way. Now, if you're a tenured veteran, to put it in perspective, as far as I'm tracking, the last time I ever looked at numbers, right? If you're a UFC champion or you're fighting for a championship, I think the minimum you could make for a fight was anywhere between 400,000 to 500,000. Okay. In retrospect, you're like, that's a ton of cash.
Right.
But if you're on the middle card of a boxing event, or you're the main event of a non-title fight boxing match, you could be making upwards of $5 million, $4 million, millions.
So you're still getting short-cheated then. Yeah.
Short-cheated by a long shot, unless you were, and the only chance that you can be making what's called pay-per-view points, quote unquote, which is revenue for pay-per-views,
right,
is if you're in the main event or the co-main event. It doesn't trickle down the card all the time. It might have changed recently, but when it first started, that specifically pay-per-view points were reserved for 4 individuals, and that was the people in the main event, the people in the co-main event.
Yeah.
So again, UFC is a much bigger thing in the United States than boxing is. UFC is huge,
right?
But the pay discrepancy is not there. That's why these entertainers are getting into boxing. They're not getting into mixed martial arts, because they can make more money doing boxing because they're their own promoters, and they're making the money.
Right. I still remember.
Sorry for those that weren't expecting a sports rant.
But we just that is something I wanted to bring that out. But one thing I do want to read, moving on to a different topic, and this I mentioned this to Sean, and I'm sure some of you. I just want to fill you guys out. I know this is kind of a dry run. You guys didn't know where I was going with this, but I got this from the IRS last week, and it says you may be eligible to receive advance payments of the child tax credit. If you're eligible for advanced CTC payments and want to receive these payments, you don't need to take any action. The American Rescue Plan, signed into law in March, which was whatever that was, the $1 trillion package that Joe signed, made important changes to the CTC for most taxpayers in 2021. The credit amounts increased for many taxpayers, and the credit is fully refundable, which means taxpayers can benefit from the credit even if they don't owe any income taxes. The credit also includes qualifying children who are aged from 17 in 2017. For tax year 2021, the advanced CTC payments will be half of the estimated CTC. The maximum annual CTC will be $3,000 per qualifying child between the ages of 6 and 17, and $3,600 for under age 6. And these are supposed to start at the end of July. Yes, the IRS will make payments from July through the end of this year. So I don't know if that qualifies as another STEMI check, but it kind of sounds like to me.
That was, if I'm not mistaken, I had thought I'd seen a thing about that where at the end of July, like parents would start receiving like $300 payments
Yes.
per child or something each
Right.
month.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
each
think it was
month.
that.
Right. What do you? I mean, what's your thoughts on that, guys?
I'm about to Google how to have a kid in 1 month is essentially what I'm going to start. You know, it. I like the idea that it is for Here's the thing: when things like this get put out, it goes on paper. It's good because that is $300 that is going to benefit a child each month.
Mm-hmm.
Now, unfortunately, the 6-year-old that needs food, clothing, stuff for school, whatever it might be, even if it is like a little, it could be a new toy. I don't care. Not every family is going to put that $300 towards that child. And
That's what.
unfortunately, the money, it's not like there's a bank account that kid has access to that it's like, oh, that's your money. Use this for your kid. You're going to have parents, you're going to have people out there that are going to be selfish and use that on something other than their child or something other than what they need. People are going to be walking to tattoo parlors. People are going to be getting a bunch of nonsense that they don't
Buying
need.
big
New
screen
shoes for
TV, big screen TV. Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
I,
and that's unfortunate. It's one of those things like you wish it could simply be regulated to where like when they go to the store, even if it came out like on a prepaid debit card, like it specifically had to go for like food or something that would work for a child, but we know that's not how it's going to go.
well, I think, and Travis, you jump in on this anytime too. Even though I know you don't have any kids yet, but I think that it, to me, this is more of, and I was talking about this with my wife the other day. I said, well, it looks like we're going to be getting more money. I said, it'll probably be doled out. It's not going to be a big chunk of change this time. It'll be a little bit from July until the end of the year. And I mean, I think at some point, maybe this is my conservative side coming out. I mean, isn't it aren't we about at the point now where we really need to start moving forward with our economy on our own instead of having the government you know, trying to kickstart it in any way they think that they can?
Well, I mean, you said it. I don't have kids, so, and Sean made a good point. Unfortunately, this benefit is going to people that, to be honest, didn't even need the money anyway. There was a guy I know, won't say his name, but he was an electrician and he had a couple kids. I forget how many to get the numbers he was getting, but guy was making 6 figures a year, like very well off. And that's just him, not his wife working too. And he was getting ridiculous amounts of money as stimulus just because he had kids. And he didn't need it. He even says, like, I don't need this money. The government's just giving it to me. And what's unfortunate is that, I'd rather see the money go to the people that actually need it. And unfortunately, Sean made a good point too. Who knows what this money's actually going to, if it's even benefiting the child that it's supposed to, or if it's going towards a new tattoo or, TV or whatever. But you could look at it another way too and say, well, maybe that's a good thing because it's going back into our economy and going towards businesses. There is that side of it too.
Let me just mention.
Go ahead.
So this goes back. This is something that has been out here's your historical note and this is actually an economic guy. This guy was drilled in my head when I took micro and macroeconomics. Guy by the name of John Maynard Keynes. He was a British economist back in the 1930s, and he was the one who basically said, if you want to kickstart your economy, what the government needs to do is deficit spending, and he referred to it as priming the pump. Okay, so priming the pump to get the economy moving again. And of course, that's what you saw. Roosevelt was a partial believer in this. I think some people sometimes mislabel Roosevelt as a socialist, and he was this guy who did all, he was terrible, and he got a. Roosevelt believed in priming the pump, and I try to explain it to my students this way. Before you start your weed eater or lawnmower or anything like that, you got that little bubble on there that that you push, that you prime the gasoline. And I always tell the kids this, okay? I said, once you get the lawnmower started or the weed eater started, do you keep on priming the pump? No, you rev on the gas and you go. You stop priming the pump. And I think in the 1930s, John Keynes took on like wildfire because, Roosevelt did what he was supposed to do. He got us moving out of the Depression, and then what ends up happening then is now we've created, from this, from the 30s, you had the New Deal, and then you move on into the 60s when Kennedy had the New Frontier, and then Johnson had the New Society, and all this was this basically socialized everything, and that it was basically John Keynes on crack now. Okay, we're going to pump all of this money in. This is why you see federal grants. This is why you see, ridiculous government spending on things like, the University of Wisconsin getting a $1 million grant to study the effects of methane gas from cow manure on the environment. This is why you get a study from, back during the Obama days, what was it? It was like a $10 million highway construction project for US 1 through this part where these tortoises who were endangered species were getting run over by cars, and so they took up parts of Highway 1 and they put these culverts in so these turtles didn't have to cross the road. I mean, yes, okay, great, it stimulates the economy and we've got all this great stuff going on, but at some point the government needs to step back and say, okay, we need to kind of let things feel out, let business, and maybe that might be the conservative side of me. I don't know, Travis, you're the money guy. What's your thoughts on that?
Here's exactly what I think. Some of this is speculation. Some of this is stuff off what I've studied, what I've heard about, what I've read. What I think this whole crisis, whatever it has allowed them to set up a framework for universal basic income. I believe that's the route we're going. And if you look at what they're talking about now, the Fed is exploring the digital dollar. Why are they exploring the digital dollar? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, environmental, fiat, trees, all that stuff. We won't get there. But what I'm getting at is that they ran into an issue with all these payments. They ran into an issue because the payments were slow. They weren't getting to people what they believe were fast enough. Some people who were dead were getting payments. There was a ton of issues with the stimulus and the stuff that was getting put out there. So what my belief is we're going to see a digital dollar come, for better or for worse. I think what this is set up a framework for them to do that, because they need something that is going to be more efficient than sending out a check or doing a direct deposit through the banking system the way they've been doing it. That's just my opinion. I don't know what you guys think on it, but I mean, when has this ever, I mean, yeah, you talked about back in the 90s when Clinton gave out the extra money that they have, but when in the history of the United States have we ever seen direct payments like this to the American people, to families, to things like this? Like, has this ever happened?
That's the only times that I've known of is during the surplus, and then during the 1930s, you had what was called the Federal Emergency Relief Administration, which Roosevelt designated. I want to say it was like $300 million. Again, that's in 1930s money, but he designated. No, it's five. I'll take that back. It was $500 million directed to state agencies to give directly to people who, you're elderly, you're disabled, all that other stuff, and that and those are the only two times that I can think of in history where the government gave money directly to the people.
And we're not even talking stimulus too. I mean, look at the employment crisis going on in the United States. So many people are just on unemployment right now. And, they said like, oh, well, if you got an opportunity for a good paying job, they say they're going to fix it. But I personally haven't seen it. I mean, I think I told you guys, like, my boss can't find anybody to come work.
No.
They show up and then they quit because there's something in the system where if they show up and then quit, they can get back on unemployment. Like they have to make an attempt pretty much, and it's a bullshit attempt.
Right.
But how long is this going to go on for? Like I have a lot of issues with the spending, and
well,
I wish it was going to families that actually needed it instead of just everybody. I think that's the biggest thing. But
I'll share.
I don't know.
I'll share an interesting one with you. So I did, and Travis, you probably saw this. Lyft put out an unbelievable bonus last week. It said it was give 45 rides and make a guaranteed $375, and I couldn't pass that up. I mean, I can do 15 rides a day easy. And I knocked it out. I knocked it out in 2.5 days. I was able to knock it out in 2.5 days. But I gave this one elderly lady a ride, and she told me right from elderly African American woman, 80 years old, and she was, and I loved her spirit from the moment she got into the car, and she was just like, I just can't understand people these days, and she says, I'm tired of all this COVID stuff. She says, I want to get back to work. And that right there knocked me off my socks. An 80-year-old woman who says, I just want to get back to work. And I'm thinking, you work? And she said, yeah, they're not letting me work right now because they're afraid of the COVID stuff and everything that I'm in. She said, but I've had the vaccine, I've had everything. And apparently she's like for you guys locals who know Joanne Hammock from Clopton, she reminded me just like Joanne Hammock, somebody who wants to work, who wants to be there, who wants to. She's like, I can work and I can put, all I'm doing is just sitting around and listening. The way she said, listening to these old farts at my retirement home, and I dropped her off at her retirement home, really nice place, and she was like, just listening to him cussing and smoking and drinking, talking about how bad things are and everything. And she said, I just want to get back to work, and it blew me out of my socks. That here is a woman who probably should be just, sitting in her apartment, probably knitting or doing something retirees do at age 80, and she wants to work, and I found that phenomenal. And I was just the whole time, I didn't get a word in edgewise. I was just, yes ma'am, yes ma'am, yes ma'am, yes ma'am. And it was really unique to have that conversation with somebody. I said, I did get to say, well, there are plenty of jobs available right now. She's like, yeah, but they won't let me work. And so she didn't say to me per se, but I mean, I took it by what she was saying is that she probably tried to apply at a couple of places because she wanted to, supplement her income, even though she's retired. That blew me away. But yet we can't get able-bodied people like my age and your age to go out and to get a job. And I know we talk about this a lot, but it's still, like you said, Travis, I think it's a bunch of crap that people don't want to work. And there's jobs out there that are willing to pay. I mean, there in Louisiana, Missouri, we have, I don't know what it's called now, but back in the day it was called Fifth Gear, and it's a fulfillment center.
Yeah.
And they had ads in the Press News Journal, like starting pay at $18 an hour. 18, and I'm like, yeah, it's crap work, but $18 an hour, you're not going to find that anywhere else in Pike County.
I just want to say, too, well, number one, I think any work's good work. I mean, really, yeah, it may be hard work. I wouldn't call it crap work, but I understand what you were trying to say. Mm-hmm. But I think there's a big issue with, we've created a generation, and I know it's not everybody. There's young, hardworking kids out there, my age and younger, that are really trying to, work hard and achieve things. I get that. But I think there's a majority out there that have been brought up to not really want to work. And I don't think it's just I think there's people older too that are taking advantage of this system. Mm-hmm. But I read something the other day that just blew my mind. And it's and it was something along the lines of the fact that the banks or the institutions are so easy to give you a $100,000 school loan, but yet you ask for a $10,000 loan to start a business and they want nothing to do with you. Mm-hmm. I found that very interesting, especially considering, we're in a country with huge debt, an unemployment rate that I don't think what they're telling is the truth, to be honest, based off what I've seen. I think it's worse, but I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting. And now we're seeing, these payments going out and,
Well, and I look at, and I'm not just saying this because I do a podcast with you guys, but I looked at, I mean, I knew both of you guys back in your high school, heck, your middle school days.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, Sean, I knew that you, I mean, and I'm not just saying this to butter Sean up, but I mean, I knew Sean was somebody who always had, and Travis, you were too, and your brother was the same way too. You guys all had, you had your job, and then you had like these three or four little side things going on that you could get this and get that, and I gave Sean a whole bunch of crap when he was in college, and he was doing this, but he was being a stripper, and he was doing stand up, and he was doing bartending, and I'm like, do you ever find time for yourself? But I mean, you had these things going. And Travis, you're in the military, and then when you get out, you and Sean talk about doing coffee company and doing all this stuff, and you guys have a goal, and you have an idea, and you have a purpose. We have some people who don't even, I mean, have the will to get up. I mean, and that's the thing. When I did the lift last week, I saw people, like I said, who struggled. It looked like to get out of bed, get out to my truck, and get into my truck just so I could take them down to down to the store to buy liquor or whatever. I took a dude to a gas station. He was already smelling. I picked him up at 9. I took particular notice. I picked him up at 9 a.m. Dude smelled ripe. He smelled like just day-old whiskey, and he was just like reeked of alcohol. He wanted me to give him a ride to the gas station. He came out with the typical brown paper bag with liquor in it, and I ran him back home. And I mean, this is on a Monday. It's not like it's on a Friday night or something. It's like Monday morning, 9 a.m. I'm like, okay, what's going on here?
That's drinking.
Well,
buddy.
they have a saying in Venezuela, and it goes, if you drink on Monday, you end up drinking every day of the week.
Well,
isn't that right?
Yeah. And to me, I think that's, but we're in this time frame, like you said, Travis. I mean, I've never seen a time, and I mean, I'm 46 years old, and I don't think I've ever witnessed a time where there is an abundance of jobs and people don't want to work. I don't think I've ever witnessed anything like this in my life.
I want to say
you
one
guys,
thing too. I know you
go ahead, Travis.
Yeah, please. If I know you have younger listeners that listen to the show, and I want to be clear, like, this is a amazing opportunity. If you're somebody who wants to work hard, start a business, and really do something, like, there are so many people that don't want to put the work in right now. Like, this is an incredible time.
Yeah.
Like, so if you're a high school student in Clopton listening to this right now, or if you're like a college student or whatever age, it doesn't even matter how old you are. I mean, this is an amazing opportunity to start something because no one else wants to do it.
Oh, and that's another thing, so my daughter, and I don't preach this stuff to my kids at all. So my daughter is into and this is a total different thing that blows my mind that kids are even into this, but they're into this thing that they're called fidgets. You remember back we had fidget spinners. You guys probably, when you were in high school, the fidget spinner thing. Well, now it's exploded into, I mean, just all these little, any kind of knickknacks or whatever. And my daughter, she makes these things out of clothespin parts, and then she'll go out, and she did that for a while, and then she says, Daddy, can't I just buy stuff from Walmart and resell it to kids at a higher price? And this is a 10-year-old child. And I said, well, yes, honey. She said, well, how do I make money on that? I said, well, how much, she's buying these stress balls from Walmart for $3. I said, turn around and sell them for $6. So last week she goes out and she buys 3, sold all 3 of them the very next day. And she took that money, she bought 3 more, and that was on Friday, and she's going to sell them tomorrow. I'm just like,
that's awesome.
And I just like, and I mean, that was nothing on my end. Here's a kid who sees an opportunity to make money, do it,
I got in trouble for that. I got in trouble for that at school because I was very particular about how I did it too. But I remember in high school, our yearbook group always did these candy box sales where they would sell candy for a yearbook.
Yes.
And I very specifically would either wait before they started selling or after they started selling. And I'd go to Sam's Club and get the $15 candy box that came with 40 candy bars. And I'd pop it in my locker.
I remember when you did
I'd
that.
sell them, and I made a ton of cash. And then I got in trouble and was just told, like, you can't do this here anymore. I was like, who am I interrupting? Whose sales am I ruining? But
I don't know if you guys, I don't remember who it was, but it was while you guys were still in high school. Remember when we had to go to all diet sodas and the soda machines, and I forgot, maybe you guys remember who it was, but somebody was bringing Sundrop to school and selling straight Sundrop out of the cans of Sundrop for $1. You guys remember that?
I think they had changed that right before or after we.
It may have been. There was a kid. There was a kid. I forgot who it was, but he was. I mean, he was making. You know, he's buying a $6 case of a Sundrop, a 12 pack, and he's selling. He's making huge profit on it. And finally, Logman had to get onto him, not because he was making, but because he started having ants in the bottom of his locker, So it was just like, but I mean, that's the kind of entrepreneurship that I think we're missing today is people who desire to go out and to do these things. People don't, like you said, Travis. I took the opportunity. I'm starting year number 5 with Lyft and Uber, and I'm pretty much going with Lyft anymore because it's more profitable in Springfield. But like I said, there's not too many of us who are doing it in Springfield, and making $375 in 2.5 days. That was easy. Minus $75. So I made, after gas, I probably made $300. After gas, I probably made $300. But still, for 2.5 days, making $300, and it's out there for anybody to do.
And I want to say too, it doesn't even have to be, you don't even have to go start a business. Like the blue collar world is there's so many opportunities in it. And unfortunately, I don't know if it's still this way, and maybe you didn't see it, Andy, but maybe Sean will agree with me with this, but graduating high school when we did, it was it seemed like it was frowned upon if you went straight to the workforce instead of just going to college. Like it really seemed like if you didn't go to college, you were a screw up and you were just doing it wrong. Sean, do you agree with that? That's kind of how it felt.
And for us, it was a little bit different too, at least in our community, because we had a ton of friends that, just went right to the workforce. Like you and I never thought anything like those people. God knows what the community thought about them. Like that just went to work. For us, where we were in particularly, I believe it was a little bit different. Now, to be fair, there was also a difference between getting into the workforce and then going about your life, like starting a career and then living that life. And then there was the ones that were 22, 23 banging out 16-year-olds in the parking lot and then making fun of the 16-year-old dudes that were at the gas station parking lot because they were hooking up with the girls in their grade. Those guys were a little bit of a problem. It's why do I care that you're 25 saying you could beat me up when I'm barely just got my driver's license and that you're hooking up with girls that are in my class? What are you talking about? Right. There's a big difference between the levels of it, but yeah, no. And I bet in the bigger cities, it was definitely probably something too, that level of if you weren't going to college, people were kind of looking at you like you were crazy. There's this big, I agree. There's a big misconception of you don't need college. And here's the thing, not everyone's meant for college. That's why there's a lot of people that leave college after being there for a semester, maybe
exactly
2
and I think
semesters. Yeah.
And I think that's the new, oh yes, here's my visitor right here.
Hey.
But I think that the tech, and I tell kids anymore, I'm like, so what do you want to do after high school? And they're like, well, I don't want to go to college. I said, good, then don't. I said, go.
Yes, exactly.
Go. And I won't mention this kid's name, but this kid So he's graduated 2 years ago now. He went out there to our vocational tech program out there at in Neolia, and he went through our welding program, which we have. I think we have and I'm not saying because I'm a Clopton teacher, but I think we have a superior welding program out there. And our instructor out there, Aaron Irvin, takes these kids to the state competition every year, and he usually comes back with he usually brings back like the top 4 places. Well, this kid from Clopton won the state competition 2 years ago, gets a full ride scholarship to which it was one of those tech schools, and then on top of that he gets.
Is it Lynn Tech or State Tech?
Lynn Tech. It was Lynn Tech, and it was and then he got 12, and then they outfitted him with $12,000 worth of welding supplies. This for winning this competition.
Wow.
And so
that's crazy. That's awesome.
And so this kid is, I mean, this kid's he works on the farm, but he also has a welding job. He does welding jobs on the side, and I mean, this kid's, he's banking it because, he didn't buy into the BS that you had to be this, and that's the thing. I mean, my generation, you had to go to college, and believe me, there were people who I went to college with that had no business being in college, who were running up, who were too wealthy to afford to get Pell Grants, but their parents wanted them to rough it out on their own. So these kids are going out, and I mean, this is back in the 90s, and racking up $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 student debt loans, which now some of them are just, I mean, I follow them on Facebook, and they're just now paying them off. Now it's, 25 years later, and you say, well, what are you doing these days? Oh, and they're the ones who got the liberal arts degree. Okay. Oh, you got a degree in liberal arts. Hey, you can drive cab number 7. I mean, and not to knock people who do have a liberal arts degree, but that's, that's everything from underwater basket weaving to, weightlifting. I mean, there's no, and to me that was the biggest joke of the 90s and the early 2000s was the liberal arts degree. I mean, you went to get a piece of paper that you did nothing with.
Well, maybe that is why we're at. I mean, we have a group of people who don't want to work, but at the same time, we kind of set them up for failure in a sense because we pushed, hey, take out this loan, go to this school, and you'll just figure it out when you get to the school. Just take out this loan, you'll figure it out there. Like, I don't know, maybe that contributed to it. I don't think it was beneficial by any means. I mean, you get people to take out these loans at a young age when they don't fully understand how much $60,000 in debt really is. And then they get to the workforce and they're like, well, I'm making minimum wage. Say they're making $15 an hour, but they can't even afford this $60,000 student loan. And it's like, well, but I can get money from the government and actually be able to pay my bills.
And I can attest to that a little bit. And that's part of the reason. I mean, no, it isn't even part of the reason. The reason why I joined the military was to pay for college. That was the sole purpose of me enlisting. It turned out that I ended up really enjoying a lot of it. But my experience, like going to the college that I went to, who ended up screwing me over and cost me a lot of money, and thankfully that's not something I really deal with anymore, was when you're an 18-year-old kid, right? You're 18, you don't really, in high school, you probably didn't take a class on loan payments or how to deal with loans, but you go into an admissions office, and then you go up to like a desk, or you get assigned into a little cubicle where you talk with someone that's the university accountant, right? Mm-hmm. And the accountant's going to tell you all about everything that you're going to need as far as room and board, as far as meal plans, as far as everything. They're going to run that tab up on you. And then they're going to give you a couple pieces of paper and just say, just sign here, just sign here, just sign here, just sign here. Don't worry about this. You're going to sign here, sign here. You go in there, not truthfully understanding exactly what you're getting into, because they show you exactly well, this is what grant money you qualify for. This is how much student loan stuff you qualify for through your FAFSA. And if you don't have a FAFSA, well, then guess what? Like if your parents don't agree to fill out your form, then too bad, so sad. And you go in and you sign this stuff because they're like, oh, well, if you don't do this, like you're not going to college here. You're not going to school. And you already have it in your your mind like, oh crap, this is what I want to do.
Right.
And then the next thing you know, you're signed up, and then you get hit with this check that for some people, you're right, doesn't stop for years. One thing that I had always thought was, I know a lot of people talk about, and the argument's always, people want education to be paid for, and then it's going to devalue what education is. And I don't agree. It's one of those like double-edged swords. I don't necessarily believe that every individual should pay for someone's college experience. Let's put it this way. Like Mizzou, let's compare apples to oranges, right? You could go to State Fair Community College that would probably cost you like, I don't know, $2,000 a semester, something like that. Or you could go to Mizzou where it's about $12,000 a semester. Now, why would we want the public to have taxpayers pay for that $12,000 college experience if you're getting the same exact degree, right? Let's say you were going to start and get an associate in like business administration between Mizzou and State Fair, community college. It's about a $10,000 difference. Why would we make taxpayers pay for that experience? I believe that there should be, in some way, shape, or form, probably it'd have to be an online option. But let me tell you, schools that have these gen ed requirements, it's a cash grab. It's a freaking cash grab joke. Oh, if I'm a business major, why do I have to continue to take 2 more years of college algebra or college geometry? Get out of here with that bullshit. That is a cash grab joke.
Oh, and I'll go one better with you on that one, Sean. You mentioned, so I was deficient in math in high school. So when I get to college and I take college algebra, because I'm a history major in emphasis in social studies and education, and so one of the things you have to take is college algebra. Okay, well, I go into this college algebra class and I can tell from day one, my high school experience did not prepare me. Okay, well, you have to have college algebra to be able to attain your degree. Since you're behind, you need to go take this pre-college algebra class, which is not even a 100 level class. It was like an 095 class. And so I have to pay my $300 for that class so I can go and then take, or pay my $300 for that class back in the day so I can spend another $300 the next semester so I can take college algebra. And that, you want to talk about something that pissed me off 7 ways to Sunday, that was it. Just what you said. I mean, get me, and give me what I need. Get me what I need. Yep. And I tell everybody who's an education major, and I still attest to this day, and I probably make these young teachers scream when I say this. Forget all the crap that they teach you in all these theory courses. My greatest education was when they plopped me down in Hannibal High School in 1996 in the midst of Hannibal High School had a lot of race issues that year. Plop you down in a school of 3,500 kids in the high school. Here's where you learn. Real life experiences. Don't give me to me, and again, this makes educators scream probably, but to me, my college experience was an expanded version of high school. That's what it was. My master.
Well, that's the thing is, what's the point of 4 years of high school if you have to take gen eds when you get to college?
Exactly. It's a waste.
What's the point? Yeah.
There is none.
Money.
Yeah, and that's why I'm a firm believer. Like the idea of free education isn't necessarily a bad one. The issue comes down to when people start demanding that people pay for their experience. And I'm also so in the military, oftentimes we offer bonus incentives for certain jobs that we need filled, right? Let's hype it that here, and I'm not going to knock, because I started as a theater major, but at the end of the day, do we need 1 million theater majors? Probably not. Okay. Those jobs are few and far between as they are. Mm-hmm. So for the American taxpayer to pay for someone's theater degree or someone's sports medicine, whatever the degree might be, doesn't necessarily always make sense if everyone's just going to do it. Right. But if there were like incentivized majors of like, hey, we need more nuclear physicists. You want to be a nuclear physicist, go to school? We'll offer some incentives. Or we need more doctors. We need more well-rounded doctors. We could offer incentives for those kind of individuals to go to school. I don't see why that would necessarily be the worst thing. But then you would probably fall into the, well, if they're getting money, why don't we get money? This category doesn't get any money. But, in the military, like, there's right now in the National Guard, we have $12,500 sign-on bonuses for certain jobs that we need people to take. And that's the incentive is like, we need these here in Missouri. Here's some cash for
schooling.
Exactly. And you get a free education. That again, I understand it's frustrating to go to school for that long and to have that, these big bills, but it's like, hey, no one made you go to that university. No one forced you to go to that college. You could have gone to a community college for 2 years, got your grades up to where when it came time to transfer to another university, you could have got a better scholarship. There's a million and one different ways that people could do it. But unfortunately, I want everyone to live their life. I want people to have fun. But honestly, I'm a firm believer you should not people shouldn't have to pay for your experience, right?
Right.
Like Mizzou shouldn't be free because you want to go to Mizzou so bad. But if like the local community college was free, okay, cool. Like,
and Missouri,
that's
Missouri's doing that now with the A+ program. I think,
and people still don't take advantage of it.
And that's what kills me. A+ program, and for those of you who listen who are outside of Missouri, the A+ program was I think it's been around for probably 6 or 7 years now, maybe longer than that.
Longer than that.
Was it back when you got?
I think it's like 8 or 9.
So you had to maintain what was it, like a 3.5, 3.6 GPA in high school?
No, it was lower than that.
I got
away with it.
Really? Well,
I think it was like a 2. Yeah.
So, and all you have to do then and they require you to do these service hours, and basically what it was tutoring the little kids, or going and sitting in the classroom, or grading papers, or doing, and then you basically, to any 2-year college, you basically get in for free. And even still at our graduation ceremony, I mean, we had a graduating class, I think, of 36 to 37. And this was probably one of the larger classes that I had seen that had taken advantage of it. And I was really happy to see that so many kids. But still, I'm like, people, even when you load, and all those incentives you mentioned, Sean, even when you load people down with incentives, here are all these things. Here, if you go in this field, we'll give you the 12.5 bonus. We'll give you this. Or hey, high schoolers, we'll do this for you if you, and they still.
Because people want something for nothing. They want the reward without the work. And I mean, there's so many. Sean made a good point. There's so many opportunities. Like, we have the A+ program in Missouri, and I know other states have programs like that as well. You can join the military and get free education, but you're also getting experience, real world experience. And this is going to benefit you down the line. I mean, there's also, you might know about this, Uber. You can get free online schooling through Arizona State University online, as long as you meet the requirements and basically drive for them full time. I mean, the requirements aren't even that crazy.
Nope.
You just got to put some work in, and you get a free education. People saying that, well, I want free schooling. Schooling should be free. You can't. I'm not paying for your free school. You can get free school, but you have to do the work. It is free.
I think it's
you got to do something.
I think it's only like 45 to 50 rides a week, I think, is all it is too.
Yeah, it's just. I don't know. I see all these incentives and I see all these programs.
Really?
And to me, because it's a real thing. So it's and Lyft. I don't know if they do free school yet, but they do tuition assistance.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean,
we even look at like places like Taco Bell offers, and Starbucks is starting to offer like money for college for their employees.
Yeah, McDonald's. I heard McDonald's is toying with that idea too. And so this just goes on to prove. and I don't want to minimize. And I know that we'll have the angry listener out there probably after this gets out on the podcast this week, and I'll get the angry email or something or text from somebody. Oh, you're not considering this or that, or this isn't. I'm not minimizing that, but at the same time, our society is, I don't want to focus on all the negative of our society, but at the same time I want to focus on some of the positive, because people are putting incentives out there. They are great. Yes, there are these multi-million-dollar conglomerates who are greedy bastards who just, pardon my French, but who are taking advantage of the system. But yet there are those who are out there who are putting, they want their people to succeed. They recognize, hey, McDonald's, hey, Starbucks, hey, Burger King, hey, Taco Bell, we're a stepping stone to help you to get to something better. Here's a way that we can help you. And I mean, and people, that's the thing that kind of angers me. People want to go straight from high school and they want to have straight everything that their parents have. They want that big car. They want that big house. They want the big, they want the high-speed internet. They want the 35-inch, plasma or the whatever LED TV. They want the, and I've said this many times before. I'm entering the 25th year of my career. And I'm just now getting to the point where I can say I'm living semi-comfortably, but it doesn't, it comes from work. My wife is a perfect example. My wife started in the mental health industry. She worked in a state developmental state operated developmental center where she started out as a tech. And what a tech is the people who take care of the people with special needs, changing the adult diapers, wiping the butts, giving them the showers, giving them and taking care of these people. And she's worked with the state of Illinois for 25 years. And she started out at literally, nasty wages. And she's worked her way to where she's pretty much maxed out in her career. And she's got there, but she's put in her time. She's put in her work. She's paid, people don't want to pay their dues to get to success. They want success. They think they deserve it now. And I mean, we've harped about this entitlement issue before. Man, you've got to put in the work to get where you want to go. And that's why I applaud you guys, because you guys are putting in the work now. And I think you guys are going to see the dividends pay out. I mean, I hope to see your coffee company one day just become, on every store shelf in America. I mean, I can see you guys going somewhere because you guys have a dream, you have a goal, you have a plan, you work that plan. My dad always said, and I don't agree with my dad on everything, but he said, plan your work and work your plan.
I like that.
So we've rambled on a lot tonight about nothing, and I love it.
No, it's actually been one of my favorite episodes we've done. I know it started out with me being a complete dunce, but I really like how it kind of
5, 4, 3, 2.
Not paying attention. No, it actually turned into a good thing. It's nice, regardless of any kind of conversation. It's nice when you're kind of just able to get a little bit of things off your chest and kind of just go with it. And you guys are always good eyes and ears for those kinds of things. And also love the vocality from both of you. I definitely appreciate these conversations, and they definitely help me set the tone for my week, especially with us, hitting it on Monday. It makes me motivated. Again, we talked about doing the work. One of my, an individual that everyone in the world knows, Kevin Hart, is one of my favorite sayings, is everyone wants to be rich and famous. No one wants to put the work in. You want these things, but you have to go out with some kind of initiative and some kind of drive, and no one will hand it to you. There are the lucky few that it comes on a silver platter, but everyone else has a buffet. You just have to use the fucking scoop. So, gentlemen, it has been a blast chatting with you. Is there anything else that you two would send to our listeners before we wrap things up here this Monday?
We actually will have an organized topic for next week, but this was one of those.
Yes.
We were talking about that beforehand. Sean and I both have some hot button topics. I have a hot button topic that I want to bring our guest on for that I think will be a good topic, and Sean wants to get a little bit more research done on the paranormal end before we get into that. So
yes,
and that's going to be a fun show too.
I agree.
Oh, yeah.
I agree.
And maybe
Travis, you got anything?
We'll see Travis next week. We'll actually see Travis next week.
Yeah, he'll actually see me, not a picture of me. But yeah, I got nothing. This is a good episode. I'm kind of curious now. I'm gonna build a whole list of education opportunities for people that are willing to work for it. Besides just Army and Uber, I'm gonna do a research. I'm gonna make a whole list for.
Nice. I like that.
If there's any younger people that are interested in these opportunities, maybe we'll drop a PDF file of it. I don't know. I'm gonna do the research on that.
We can put that.
Really
Definitely put that on the page. We can definitely.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. I'm actually really looking forward to that because even once I get my degree with the lovely GI Bill and state thje, I might actually just keep on educating myself with those kind of benefits. I like it.
And then you'll have a famous author wife by that time too. So.
Yeah, so hopefully I don't gotta do jack shit, and I'll turn into everything I talk shit about. So I will become the monster. I'll be sitting poolside like what are all these working plebes doing? I got a hot rich wife.
Oh, working plebes. There it is. Yep.
Well,
going to the liquor store on a Monday.
They living life, baby.
Yep.
I'll have Andy pick me up. Well. Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you all so much for giving us a listen, and we hope you guys enjoyed this kind of relax fit ramble that we did this Monday. Definitely go out and attack your week full force. Go out, work hard, whether it's in school, whether it's in your job, whether it's in your life. Do what you can to get better one day at a time. Please, one way to do that, to encourage yourself, is by listening to our podcast, which you can actually find on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, and right here on Facebook. It is always a pleasure to chat with you guys, and next week we'll have a little bit more put together and a little bit more organized. But until then, this has been the Voice of Reason podcast with Andy Van Beber, Travis Kirkendall, and Sean Phillips. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we can't wait to talk to you next week.
See you guys.
See ya.